Hello, I'm retired Battalion Chief Larry Cockman, Chairman of the Greensboro Fire Department History Book Committee. The American Fire Service is rich in tradition and culture. A firefighter's life is filled with many emotional highs and lows. Stories of major fires, national disasters, medical calls, firehouse living, and family life are often verbally shared from one generation to another. Many times, these stories are lost forever when a firefighter passes away. In an effort to preserve these stories, in 2019, the Greensboro Fire Department History Book Committee launched a new program of recording audio-video of our retirees' lives. These stories will be shared on our website, gfhbc.org. In 2020, we did not record because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Please listen as these firefighters share their life experiences with all of us.
Gary Dwayne Knight. My age is 58. I was hired July 1st, 1989. I worked until December of 2002. I went out on disability retirement with 13 years of service as a fire equipment operator. I was born and raised in Greensboro. Actually, I still live in the house I grew up in. Currently, Vicki Martin is married to a cousin of mine at the Greensboro Fire Department. So as far as that's the only relative I have that's associated with Greensboro Fire. Before I joined the fire department, I had just come out of high school actually. And so I went to work actually for Pine Cross Sedgefield before Greensboro. So I worked 5 years there prior to applying for Greensboro Fire Department. What made me want to become a firefighter is a really good question, because I really wanted to go to school at North Carolina State and study agriculture management. And I went to some career days out of high school, and I got very interested in the North Carolina Highway Patrol, and I also spoke with somebody there from Greensboro Fire. So I became a volunteer firefighter at Pine Cross Sedgefield, and then I was later hired as a full-time firefighter and just moved on to my career from there. The process I went through to get hired was we had to go downtown and fill out an interest card, and then you were notified by mail that they were going to be taking applications. You would go to Church Street and get your application, fill it out, and then you came back and you took some written exams, I remember. And then after that, they called you in for interviews, which I actually still have those letters that they mailed, for the interviews. And I was interviewed, I think, by Chief Pete Colberth. At the time, he was a training chief. And then you come back and did the physical agility test, and then you found out they were doing background checks. And then you were notified when your starting date was, and you had to go do a physical and then start we started July 1st, the coolest time of the year. My start salary was around $18,500 in 1989 for Greensboro. In my training class, I actually had a great group of guys. It was a large training class. We had a lot of people. It was Jackie Beard was in my training class, Ricky Merle, Jackie Spoon, and these were ones I'm naming that have passed on since we've had training. And then, we had Frank Peacock, Chuck Snuggs, Mike McLean. We had a very interesting training class indeed. I would say the funniest story that we had in training was the thing with Strimple being our PT leader. We had a very interesting story with that. I would say in training, maybe the funniest story that I had was actually with Skip Nix, Captain Nix. He came up to me, and I'll tell this. And he came up to me and he asked me if I understood what it meant if somebody in the United States Marine Corps, like a drill sergeant, could remember their name. And I said, no, I don't. And he told me that, it was not a good thing if they remember my name. And then he put his ball cap right to my forehead and he said, guess what, Mr. Knight? I know your name, so Skip, that one's for you. I always felt like I was in the job I should be in. I love serving. I love the challenge of the fire department because you never knew what every day was going to bring. I don't think I would have done well in an 8-to-5 environment where I knew what I was going to have to do from start to finish. So the fire department was always just a great opportunity for me. My first station assignment was Station 7. I was on C shift with Captain Robert Atkins. He was the captain of the truck company, Purvis. And then Willie Johnson was the captain on the engine. And actually, 3 of us from our training class was on that shift. It was me, Jackie Beard, and Brian Kincaid. My chief was Larry Cockman. Captain Robert Atkins was my first captain on the truck company. And he had, on that truck, it was also the driver was Julius Evans. David Brame was the second driver, and then me and Brian Kincaid was the rookie firefighters on that shift. And then on the squad, you had Rick Gentry and Jeff Souther, which was also associated with the truck company at Station 7. Captain Atkins was a real aggressive captain. He wanted us to get the nozzle. He would always tell me and David Brame, he's like, do not let those squad guys get that nozzle. He goes, I want you guys in there putting that fire out. And we had a lot of exposure to working structure fires my first year there. It seemed like every day we came in, we was having a working fire. And so we were getting lots of exposure to that. I did have a nickname, which it was a nickname that I came into the fire department with, and it was just G Knight. And that was okay for a nickname until I got to work with Gary Evans, and his nickname was G. Evans. So I used to always tell Gary, I was like, there can only be one G, and it's going to be me. As far as pranks go at the firehouse, that was a part of it that I actually thrived for. It was fun, but one particular event happened at Station 5 with Chief J.W. Manus, of all things. And we had been involved with, let me back up just a little bit. The day before this happened, David Birch was the captain on the truck company, and I was currently riding the squad with Drew Clark. And Captain Birch was getting ready to go on vacation, and this was before the new Boy Scout camp or any of that was back there. It was the old area, and we could go back behind Station 5 and hit golf balls. Late in the evenings after supper or whatever. So they was back there chipping golf balls, and I made the comment, I said, I could take a golf ball from right here and carry Lucky 32's parking lot and hit that dumpster. And everybody said, there ain't no way, not without hitting a car. I said, I won't touch a car. So the shift was over, and I came up with this plan that what we would do, and I knew that Chris Hare, and Chris, if you're listening, please forgive me. I knew that Chris Hare was going to be acting captain on the truck company. So Tony Burris was also involved in this. So I came up with a plan that I was going to wait till it got dark. I was going to drop a golf ball, and I was going to act like I swung the club. Chief Manus had decided that he would go to the dumpster at Lucky 32's with a ball-peen hammer. He would watch me swing the club, knowing that I wasn't going to hit a golf ball, and track the flight and then hit the dumpster. Well, what Chief Manus didn't know, I had talked to 2 people that was coming out of Lucky 32's, and they were eating dinner there. I said, look, I told them what was going to happen. I said, when you hear that hammer hit that dumpster, I said, you hit my car. And start making out like I'd actually hit a car. So it ended up being and I never forget when I actually swung the club, and I went over there when they were like, you hit my car. And I remember Chief Manus coming out from behind the dumpster. He was like, go back, go back. But yeah, that was probably one of the best pranks that I was part of. The union was active when I came on, and it was active during my career. I did not take part in the union. I didn't really have a feeling one way or the other towards the union. I didn't, it really, I thought that it was a good thing, but I did not take part in it. Every crew that I was ever on at the firehouse, we always cooked all our meals. At that time, you would bring in $5 and that would cover your lunch and dinner. And then obviously the divvy fund would take care of the staples, the flours and the butters and sugar and stuff of that nature. So yes, we did cook. I always thought that the cooking at the station, the meals at the station was very important because it created camaraderie. It enabled everybody to, there again, you had the opportunity to maybe poke a little fun at somebody if they maybe the cornbread stuck or somebody burnt the beans or something, but some of the best meals I ever had was at the firehouse. I always felt like I was a pretty good cook. I made cornbread, I made biscuits, My favorite meal to cook probably would have been country-style steak and gravy with mashed potatoes. Then, of course, for lunch, it was always going to be pintos and macaroni and cheese and slaw and cornbread. Red Hots was big too, yeah. When I came on to the fire department, the cubicles were not in the fire rooms, in the sleeping quarters. You had everybody, it was an open sleeping quarters, and from the FEO down to the rookies stayed there and the captains had their quarters. As I was on the fire department, Station 5, I think, over at Westover Terrace became the first with the sleeping cubicles. As far as an advantage, I worked at Station 5 with those cubicles. I liked it. I didn't really think that it separated us that much except for during, sleep time. And when you was running a squad out of the station, I thought it was actually a benefit because the squad guys, they had their individual cubicles. They weren't cutting on lights to get out the door when the engine and truck company weren't running. So I always felt like the cubicles was a good thing for the fire station. Firefighters today, what they do with their downtime, to be honest, and if I answer this question, it's just going to be basically what I see at retirements when I go to a gathering like Chuck Hall when he retired. I got to meet a lot of active firefighters that I didn't know who they were, but it did seem like there was some off-duty camaraderie. After Ricky Merle's funeral, a lot of us got together with guys and we went out. So I would think that they are. I would hope that they are because I think it's important that they have that time because it does give you the opportunity to, if something's coming down the line that maybe you don't agree with, maybe a chief saying, hey, we're getting ready to do this, or it gives you that opportunity to speak about it and talk about it amongst the guys that you work with. Or it could be something good. I definitely think that the iPhone has had an impact, or the smartphone has had an impact on the firehouse. I've been to stations right now and I've went into rooms and there was no communication with anybody and everybody was kind of looking at their iPads or their iPhones, and I'm thinking, wow, this is much different scene than, what we had back in my day. I do remember my first fire for Greensboro. It was a house fire on Elwell Avenue. It was engine 7, ladder 7, or truck 7 then, squad 7 and engine 1, and you were in car 2. Chief Cockman was in car 2. So we had, it was actually a fairly large house fire. So yeah, I do remember that. We actually got the fire put out fairly quick. Engine 7 went in. We went in with the squad guys, actually had the nozzle on that one. And so yes, we actually got a quick knockdown on the fire. No injuries. When I came on the department, the squads were the ones that ran the medical calls. The engines in the ladder companies or truck companies did not run them. It was strictly like Squad 7 would go to Station 4's territory and run a medical call. Engine 4 wouldn't necessarily run the call. As my career progressed further, that began to change. And then Engine 4 would be dispatched out first in with Squad 7. And then finally, the squads were just pretty much taken out of service. And then the engine companies and truck companies ran the calls. I do see a value because of you don't have as many EMS trucks as you do fire trucks. And you do have well-trained firefighters that are able to come in and make an impact and make a difference. Are they given medications? No, but they are able to assess and start first aid care before an EMS or paramedic can get there and continue care for the patient. A medical call that probably stands out in my mind would be when I was riding Squad 5 with Drew Clark, and we had just put the defibrillators on the truck, the AEDs. And it was kind of going to be, well, who's going to run the first, defibrillator call type thing. And me and Drew was on the call, and we ran a call with engine 17, which is on Lake Brant Road. I think it's 41 now. I don't know what station number that is now. But anyway, Captain O'Farrell was there, J.I. Moore, I remember them two being there. And it was a heart attack. The person was in cardiac arrest. So we were able to put the defibrillator on the patient, start CPR, and actually had a pulse and breathing before EMS got there. So yes, that was a very impactful medical call. A major incident fire that I was on that sticks out in my mind, I think would probably be, and I went on much bigger fires than this, but I think the Morset Paper company on Elm Eugene Street. I was not riding engine 4 that day. I was actually on a squad, and it was, what made it such an impact was we were doing an interior attack. Myself and Rich Simmons and Craig Smith, we were inside doing an interior attack, and I remember Captain Pierman, Kay Pierman, was there, and somebody's air pack alarm was going off that they were, needing to go out and change bottles. And we felt like we were making an impact on this fire. I mean, fire was blowing out of 4 or 5 windows when we got there. But anyway, I just remember the 3 air horns blast, like get out of the building. And I knew that was a thing, but really, I was an aggressive firefighter. I was like, oh, we're putting this thing in the black. What do you want me to get out of the building for? And so when we got out, and I actually got to see what was going on from the outside, what they were seeing. It made sense. But I remember telling Captain Pierman while we was exiting the building, like, what are we doing? We're putting this out. But that always made a big impact on me. I think the effect of 9/11 on me as a firefighter, certainly being a firefighter, I don't care where you hear of a firefighter's death, whether it's in another state, another city, a county, whatever, it impacts you. And those folks are brothers and sisters to you, no matter what location they're in. But for me, I think the largest impact I had, I was the driver on engine 18 at that time, and Carl Eller was my battalion chief there. And I just remember the change, the immediate change that we saw in the public's view of what we did. That was the biggest impact I think that I had. The public's view became very positive. And then all of a sudden we had people just out of the blue, just bringing us desserts and stuff, thanking us for what we did. And so the bad side of it was what we lost as a country and as a firefighting and obviously the police. But the good side, there was something good that came out of that, and it was awareness of what the fire service really was doing for you as a community. I think that the interviews that we're doing with the retired firefighters is a very large value because it puts you in touch with a generation that's coming on after you. After you've been there and you've done your thing, and now you have a generation, they're coming in with red and white fire trucks. I started with a yellow fire truck. They're coming on with New York style helmets. I came on with what I used to call the cereal bowl, the yellow helmet. They're coming on with 4-inch hose. We had split lays, 2.5 and 3-inch. So they're getting to see the benefits of what work our generation and our administrations did, putting into the future of the fire service. So they're getting there, and hopefully they're going to be able to have that same impact for the generation following them. But these interviews actually, I think, should put you in touch with your past to let you know, there wasn't always a 4-inch line there was a split lay. You had to make a decision. I'm going to put a 2.5 or 3-inch on the ground. And we didn't have 1 3/4 attack lines. We had 1.5. So these kind of interviews bring that kind of information out and put it to the forefront. Some of my mentors for the fire department, certainly number one, I would have to put J.E. McCarter. I knew Captain McCarter long before I ever came to the fire service. I worked with his son, Kendall, at Pinecroft. J.E. was always somebody I could go to if I needed to talk to somebody about a certain situation. And Captain McCarter was an aggressive firefighter and a captain, and I related to that very well. When I actually got assigned to Station 4, Engine 4 on A shift, I was not with J.E. McCarter. Captain Cliff Oakley was my captain, and or FEO Ralph Lynn Murkison was my driver. And I would say between those two, I learned so much, so quick with Ralph Murkison being my driver and Cliff Oakley being my captain. Cliff was a very aggressive fire captain, but you never saw Cliff get excited. You know, the whole world could just it seemed like it was burning up around you, and Cliff just stay calm. You know, we got this. And so I was always very happy to work with Cliff, and actually all my captains at Station 4 were wonderful. I had Woody Parrish, Jackie Beard, so I had some great captains and leadership chiefs. You were one, Chief Cockman was one of my chiefs at Station 4, Carl Eller. So yeah, an aggressive firefighter to me would be a firefighter that was able to think quickly. And, you know, when you pull up and you turn that corner and the whole street's covered in black smoke, you got to make a quick assessment everybody had to. The captain did, the battalion chief did, the driver did. But an aggressive firefighter would be one that would not put himself or the people that if he was the nozzle man going in, not necessarily put anybody in danger, but also be able to get to the seat of the fire and put the water on the fire. And a lot of times I would see, when I was not the nozzle man, I would see guys sometimes maybe cut that a little short and start putting water on it, but when it was, you know, before you got to the seat of the fire, which created problems sometimes. It would black the whole room out. It didn't happen often, but it would happen. But I always like to think of myself as being an aggressive firefighter. If I had to do the fire service all over again, absolutely, I would 100%. And part of that comes from when I got up to go to work every day, I couldn't wait to get to the fire station. I never dreaded it. I never said, I got to go work with this person, or I looked forward to it every day. It didn't matter what we were doing, what kind of transition the fire department was going through. I absolutely looked forward. I couldn't wait to get to the fire station. Now, when it was time to leave, I was ready to leave and get my 48 hours and then come back and do it again. But absolutely, yes, I would do it again. Would I do anything different if I had to do it? Of course I would. I think that one of the things that I would do different, I used to question authority some. I had some situations sometimes where I'd be like, why are we doing this? You know, it's not broke. What are we trying to fix here? So, but looking back now, I think that you see why you were doing it. And as you grow older and you mature, and then you do work with people that have impacts with you in the fire service, then you start to understand that a little bit better. I would have to say, as far as the biggest heartbreaking moment I had was the loss of Jackie Beard. Jackie was not only a classmate of mine in our recruit class, but he was also a very close friend of mine. And I knew Jackie long before we ever got hired with the Greensboro Fire Department. Jackie was someone, he was involved with the county. He was involved with Deep River Fire Department. And so I was on duty that day, and I remember the call coming in, you know, for what was happening. And then Captain Crow was my captain at Station 18, and they called the station and spoke to Captain Crow and Chief Eller and told us what had happened. I just remember that just being a very hard shift to finish. Some of my proudest moments on the fire department, I'm not going to say it was actually fire rescuing victims, which I was involved with several of those. I would say the impact that we had on the recruits that were coming out of training, that were there, that had never, you know, unlike me, they've never been to a fire station before. This is their first time. And later on in life, having those people come up to you, go, you remember when I went in that fire with you and you was just kind of talking to me like we're talking right now, and that just made a big difference in my life. So those were some of the proudest moments I had, and certainly the people I worked with. I mean, I couldn't be prouder of the people that I worked with. Dealing with the death of a firefighter, really my first exposure to that would have been, like I said earlier, was with Captain Beard, Jackie Beard. And I tried to deal with that in a way that I knew that Jackie loved what he did. I knew that he loved being a fire officer. I knew that he loved being a firefighter when he was a firefighter. And I tried to handle it in a way that just said, you know what, Jackie died doing what he loved to do. Now, we lost a good man and we lost a good person. So that part of it you have to deal with. And if you have faith, you have to take that to your person of faith, whether it's Jesus or whatever, you know, and pray about it. And help you through that. And talk about it amongst your brothers and sisters at the fire station. Family and faith played a big part in my life. And, you know, when I'm hearing the questions or thinking about some of the questions that I've read, you know, who were mentors? Well, faith was a very big part of my life. And a lot of that I take back to Captain Gary Church. I worked with Captain Church, and I always loved working with Gary just because he was such a company man. But he was also by the book, you know. he was not going to really skirt around, and not that anybody really did, but Captain Church was big on training. And you know, when I went to Station 5, I left Engine 4, and Engine 4, we were kind of kick the door in and let's go, get on with it. Captain Church was more of a let's assess, you know, and so. But I learned so much from Captain Church. He was such an influence in my life as a witness for the Lord, and as a witness, as a captain and a representative of the Greensboro Fire Department. What a good guy. The roles of a firefighter have definitely changed throughout the years. I mean, just in my career, I think of the changes that we had, and a lot of it I always went back to. When you start thinking of events that was going on in the fire department, certainly trying to acquire the ISO Class 1 ratings and the amount of trainings that we all of a sudden started doing and the way that we were doing things differently for that. And then putting us out front as a company and going out and doing the building inspections. You know, at first, that's one of those things I looked back at. I was like, well, I really didn't particularly care for that too much. But it puts you in your territory. And it puts you up front with, hey, if you have a fire there. And that actually happened a couple of times. One of the buildings we inspected was at the Guilford building. And I remember, you know, it was like we did that inspection, and well, 3 or 4 shifts later, we had a working fire in that building. So I knew that it was actually, you know, it was pitch dark. I knew the layout of the building. So, but looking back at it, I don't think I was thinking, oh boy, I'm glad I come in and did that inspection. But as you get older, you start thinking about that kind of stuff. I come straight out of high school and went straight to work for the fire service. My health has been good. One of the reasons that not one of the reasons, the reason I had to retire early from the fire service was I got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And I think my diagnosis with it was something that the fire service really hadn't had to deal with. They'd seen type 2 diabetes, but not an insulin dependent while you were on duty. And type 1 diabetes is called juvenile diabetes. Well, I was 37 years old. I was a driver. And so one of the NFPA guidelines, unfortunately at the time, the way the book read, I think it's probably changed. Well, I know it's changed now. Said, you know, basically this was something that maybe I should have to go out on retirement. But my health is great. I feel like you could put me on Engine 4 right now, give me a 30-minute class, and let's roll. If I had to give advice to a firefighter that was just coming out of training right now, my advice would be, listen. Open your ears and listen, because these guys that are out there that's doing it, whether they've been doing it 5 years, 1 year, 10, 15, or 30, whatever it is, they're giving you good advice. And they're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to help you. And if somebody gets on you because you do something wrong, try to take it as constructive criticism instead of personal. It's a dangerous job, and you've got to be ready for anything. And anything that, if I could tell them anything, just listen to the guys that's got experience and let them help you. I would like for the Greensboro Fire Department to remember or to think about me as somebody that gave 100%. And whether we were training or on a working structure fire or a pin-in, just somebody that prepared and did the best I could. I would think, what would I like for my family to remember about me? That I was a giving, caring person, that I put my daughter first. I have one child, I have a daughter, and she's in vet school right now. She's always been first, and so she always will be. That you can count on me. What I miss most about the Greensboro Fire Department is the camaraderie. The getting to work, hearing the shift reports from the guys before. I used to love to come in, and Steve Fowler worked, he was the driver on the shift before. I love to hear Steve's reports on everything that they had, and here's the keys to engine 4, but here's what you got. We had a problem with this. You take this to the garage, or golly, I just miss the guys and hanging out and the girls and just the good times. The horseshoe games after dinner, the rook games or whatever. Even some of the training classes I didn't really want to participate in, but now I kind of miss that kind of stuff. The teamwork, I think we pretty much covered it.
I think you did really, really good. I appreciate you coming in. I hope I didn't ask you one of them questions.
I didn't want to go over the go low. Stay low. Stay low, baby. Battalion meeting. Let's go.
In closing, the Greensboro Firefighters History Book Committee hopes you have gained a greater insight into the dangers, the challenges, and emotional events that have influenced and shaped the American firefighter.